let's go ahead and talk about the rescheduling of marijuana from Schedule 1, which is on the same level as heroin, um, to Schedule 3. Now, from my understanding, and we're going to get into this article here that talks about it in great detail, it doesn't make a lot of difference in terms of people's ability to buy and use weed all over the country. Um, this is actually more of like a business to business thing or a government to business thing, um, where basically he's just doing this so that weed companies can start making money. Um, because currently, because they are engaging in the business of a Schedule 1 product, there's a lot of legal and monetary restrictions that they face. Like they get taxed at an insane rate. They're not allowed to engage in banking systems. Like, I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but a lot of places, if you go into a dispensary, like there's this weird rounding up that they have to do if you use like a debit card. Um, all of that stuff, all of those little um, financial hurdles are because the product is Schedule 1, so they can't engage in normal banking. Um, and I believe that changing weed from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 opens them up to being able to access all that. It just makes them easier to. It makes it easier for them to engage in business all around the country. This is on Forbes. This is President Trump signs executive order to reschedule cannabis as a less dangerous drug. Greatest change to U.S. drug law since the Controlled Substances Act of 1970, and represents a new future for the $32 billion cannabis industry. Um, Good day for potheads. This says Forbes. Forbes says shout out to the potheads, and a great one for the nation's state-regulated marijuana businesses. In a historic move, the federal government will reclassify cannabis to a more lenient category. On Thursday, um, dude signed an executive order directing U.S. Attorney that lady to move marijuana from Schedule 1, a category reserved for illegal drugs such as heroin and LSD, to Schedule 3, which is used for drugs with accepted medical benefits that still have addiction potential, including steroids, ketamine, and Tylenol with codeine. Nobody tell RFK. Just don't tell him. The move is the most significant change to the nation's drug law since President Nixon signed the Controlled Substances Act in 1970. It also jumpstarts a bold new future for the $32 billion state regulated cannabis industry across 40 states. I'm not going to quote dude because he don't even know what he be talking about half the time any damn way. We had, well, this is interesting though. In dude's quote, it says, "We have people begging me to do this, people that are in great pain for decades. It's something to do with common sense," which is just a ridiculous statement anyway. But from my understanding, the people who have been begging him to do it are not sick people. It is the people who he invites into the Oval Office to influence him on things in return, and levy campaign donations and stuff like that in return for political favors. So who's been in his ear, to my understanding, are business people from the cannabis industry who have wanted this change to happen for a long time because they want to be able to engage in banking. Major step forward for the cannabis industry. It does not mean marijuana is legal on the federal level. So there's still that basic issue that even though it's legal in a bunch of states to varying degrees, it's still federally illegal. So there's still this weird gray area that I would imagine this is taking some step towards um, federal legalization to some degree. Because Schedule 3 drugs are considered controlled substances, there will still be restrictions on cannabis's manufacture, sales, and possession. The patchwork of regulated markets across 40 states that allows medical sales and 25 that permit recreational sales will still be in conflict with federal law. Um, It still doesn't allow U.S. cannabis companies to be listed on U.S. stock exchanges. But since this announcement, cannabis stocks are up 15% and up over 85% over the last month because there's been a lot of whispers that dude was going to do this. It doesn't automatically reschedule marijuana. Instead, it directs the attorney general to complete the rulemaking process around rescheduling marijuana. All this fucking bureaucratic bullshit. In the most expeditious manner in accordance with federal law. Once the attorney general issues a rule, there will be a 30-day public comment period, and there will surely be lawsuits coming from opponents who do not want weed to be downgraded to a less dangerous substance. I wonder who would want to bring a lawsuit like that. It seems very expensive. Maybe like some Christian groups or something. McConnell don't give a damn. The politicians, they don't care. The politicians don't care. It would have to be some moral group who do not want to be downgraded to a less dangerous substance. The executive order also includes a pilot program that would allow senior citizens on Medicare to get reimbursed for CBD and medical cannabis products. Interesting. It is unclear how this new classification will affect the intoxicating hemp industry, which is facing a federal ban that will go into effect next fall. But the executive order does direct the administration to work with Congress to develop a regulatory framework for hemp-derived cannabinoid products, including development of guidance on an upper limit of the milligrams and THC per serving with considerations on per container limits and CBD to THC ratio requirements. So this executive order directs Congress to start to develop a regulatory framework. So yes, it seems like this is a big step towards federal legalization if they're going to have Congress developing regulatory frameworks for shit like how much THC is allowed to be in something. Okay. Look at this cool guy with his weed and his money. Forbes found a cool older gentleman with braids, and they put him next to some weed and some money. This is an excellent thumbnail, Forbes. It's great. Once marijuana is reclassified as Schedule 3, there is a multi-billion-dollar reason for the cannabis industry to celebrate, especially during tax season. This is really interesting. For decades, marijuana companies have operated under the punitive 280E tax code reserved for traffickers of Schedule 1 and 2 substances with an effective tax rate of about 60% of gross revenue. And I think the way that's worked too is that if those Schedule 1 and 2 substances, if trafficking in those is even a part of your general business structure, like let's say you're a company that you do weed distribution, but you also do alcohol distribution, and you also do the whippets that are in liquor stores, whatever. If a Schedule 1 substance is a part of your business, your entire revenue for that year gets taxed at that 60% gross rate. So now that this is rescheduled as Schedule 3, then that would no longer be the case. So these people get to save a lot more money. A lot more money. But it also begs the question, like, there's a punitive tax code for traffickers of Schedule 1 and 2 substances. Like, what are these businesses? And is it just weed? Are we just talking about weed? Like, are there like legal cocaine companies or some shit? Are there legal heroin companies? But then, it's an opioid. So maybe, I don't know. That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, it'd be good to know what is in Schedule 2. What are Schedule 2 drugs? That's a great question. Because why does it go straight from 1 to 3? Why does it skip 2? What the hell's in 2? Schedule 2, substances with high potential for abuse, but also a currently accepted medical use with severe restrictions. So I think it's about the restrictions, because they were saying that the designation of Schedule 3 is a lot less restrictions, even though what they have in common is that these are drugs that have an accepted medical use. So I guess Schedule 1, high addiction potential and no accepted medical benefit. Schedule 2, accepted medical use but still with severe restrictions. And Schedule 3, high addiction potential, accepted medical use, and a lot less restriction. So Schedule 2, according to this AI overview, which who knows if this is right or not, includes powerful opioids, oxycodone, morphine, fentanyl, stimulants. Oh, cocaine is Schedule 2. That's interesting. And okay, so Schedule 1. Okay, let's see. If we go to DEA.gov, I'm really going to get on the list now. I'm really going to get on the list. Okay, heroin, LSD, weed up until yesterday, ecstasy, methaqualone. I never heard of methaqualone. That sounds like some 70s. That sounds like some 70s stuff. I don't want to keep. And peyote. So you can't find your spirit animal. It's a Schedule 1 drug. So that is Quaaludes. Okay, methaqualone. I was like, yeah, that Quay. You don't hear that Quay too often. Schedule 2, Vicodin, cocaine, meth, Demerol, Oxycontin, fentanyl, Adderall, Ritalin. 3 drugs abuse potential is less than Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 drugs, but more than Schedule 4. There's 4? How many schedules are there? There's 5 schedules. I don't know why they call them schedules. They got nothing to do with time. Why wouldn't they just call them categories? Why don't they just call them levels of dope? 90 milligrams of codeine per dose. Okay. Ketamine, anabolic steroids, testosterone, Schedule 4, Xanax, Soma, Darvon, Darvocet, Valium. These sound like DC villains. Valium, Ativan, Tauin, Ambien, and Tramadol. Schedule 5, Robitussin and shit. So the tax change is huge for these weed companies now that this has been changed to Schedule 3. Eeyore Vibes, thank you for the 1 gifted sub to VG Punk. We strongly support the Dude administration's decision to reclassify marijuana as a Schedule 3 substance. Kim Rivers of True Leaf, the Florida-based cannabis company that generated $1.2 billion in sales last year, and they had to pay 60% tax on that shit. It is a historic shift that acknowledges the medical value of cannabis and its lower abuse potential compared to Schedule 1 drugs. Meaningful benefits for patients, and they don't give a shit except that they're going to have new opportunities to sell products to people who are in pain. So of course they think that's very exciting. Rivers has been an integral part of lobbying President Trump to reschedule cannabis, according to 2 sources who asked to remain anonymous because they were not authorized to speak. That's people at the White House are snitching. Rivers was one of the cannabis executives present in the Oval Office while Trump held discussions around rescheduling last week. Howard Kessler, a credit card entrepreneur who runs the Commonwealth Project, an organization focused on integrating medical, cannabis, and senior care, was also there. The 2 sources tell Forbes that President Trump was convinced about marijuana, even though he's a teetotaler. The fuck out of here, teetotaler. This guy probably chews meth gum every day. He likes helping rich people get richer. He really enjoys this. It's one of his favorite pastimes. Is if you step to him like, yo, I'm rich, but you could push a button that would make me richer. Can I interest you in pressing that button? He's like, oh, a button, you say. And then he just starts pressing it, whether or not it's a good idea or not. So just know that he's not interested in helping anybody alleviate any pain. He's just helping his rich homies make more money because that's what he likes to do. Like and subscribe, homie, friend. It's free. Stop playing.